Hello, it is 10:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, and welcome to Sunday Club, where we live stream Ruby on Rails each week, and we build an app together, and we kind of take a look at things from a learner's perspective for Ruby on Rails, and someone who's interested in kind of seeing different approaches to adding different things to a Rails app. Cool. So welcome. A couple bits of follow-up from last week. I had mentioned maybe doing a couple of homework editions. I'm afraid I did not get time to do those. I actually gave a talk on Thursday instead. I was going to kind of go through some of the work in progress Git commits and tidy those up into different branches, but again, didn't get a chance to do that. It's Hacktoberfest, which is a month of promoting open source and trying to get people involved in open source code. And so I gave a talk at my local, normally it's a physical meetup, but obviously because of what's happening at the moment, it's now all online, and that was around an introduction to Git and GitHub for beginners. So apparently that will be going online. So I'll try and mention that when it goes up on YouTube. But I did get told there's no promise on dates for that, so I had no idea when that's happened. But go check out Hacktoberfest if you are learning to code, learning Ruby on Rails. You can I can't remember what the deal is, but basically you win a free T-shirt somehow. I can't remember the details. I think you have to make one commit a day or something like that. So we are. No homework edition for that. I was also talking about doing some homework edition for the user interface, which I am really still interested in doing, just no time this week. Going to try and set aside some time for that next week, and maybe those Git commit tidy ups as well, because I haven't touched those since last week. So what we're going to take a look at this week is users and adding users to the system, to the app. We last week looked at the idea of admin functionality. So we had different controllers where we could do different things to our resource, which was our channel, and we are go back in to the other streams if you want to check that out. I'm not going to provide too much context. There's obviously the whole channel is available, so you can kind of go back and follow things through. Just look at the descriptions. I added in the chapters of each video in the description of each video, so you can just go back and take a look at those if you kind of want a narrative of what's happened, and then when we finally get the site up, hopefully we can create some sort of master narrative somehow. So we added this idea of admin functionality in different places in the app. We looked at where we could put it, different options we have, and just laid out a whole bunch of different options. But we don't have any users. There's no concept of roles or anything like that. It was just an example of how it would work when users finally turned up. So I was like, well, that seems like a next logical step to approach, is like, let's add users to the system, which we're going to do today. And then maybe, depending on timings, whether we end up looking at roles, permissions, authorization, that kind of stuff. So I've done a little bit of research on this, but I was interested to kind of do this live on the stream for a couple of different reasons. Mainly because I've only used one solution for such a long time, both in kind of projects that I have set up and also projects that I've been running on behalf of other people or joined working with teams and things like that. And I was wondering what alternative solutions are, so I started Googling around, and I thought, oh, actually this would be more interesting to do on the stream itself. So let's jump over and take a look at that. So let's bring up a browser, and let's jump over to take a look at that on the screen. Cool. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So let me just check I'm just going to do the usual thing I do once or a few times every stream, and just check the audio we have. Yep, you can hear me. Still living with the PTSD of having recorded a stream with no audio one time. So if you're new to Rails in general, basically there are some areas, this is just a personal observation, others may give you different opinions. There are a few areas where one gem seems to have risen to popularity and become very much a kind of go-to, and that gem then is able to have people create kind of like we're going to talk about Devise specifically for authentication for users, but there is often then an ecosystem around it. So people will be like, okay, well, that's the most popular solution. I'm going to build a variant or a plugin or something like that that lets me use that gem plus adds the one thing that I want it to do. And when I was talking about having only used one gem for kind of user authentication, it is Devise. Like that is the thing I have done a bunch of work with, or a bunch of projects with, and I have to say mainly because like it has just worked for me. So if there are people for whom that they have had major issues with Devise, I'm not one of them, and I was really interested to see if there are any really great alternatives that I just hadn't really been aware of. So I googled, and I came up with this libhunt.com, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it actually has Devise alternatives and similar gems based on authentication and OAuth. So I wanted to kind of take a look down this. So I have used OmniAuth before for well, it does OAuth authentication with different providers, so I've used it for that. So log in with your social media logins, Google, any kind of OAuth provider. I think Doorkeeper is the other side of that, which is having your app be an OAuth provider. That came up for me when we were looking at doing some cross-domain stuff. And whether we wanted to use OAuth for that, for kind of different apps that needed to interact with each other. Now, this one caught my eye. So this is AuthLogic, a clean, simple, and unobtrusive Ruby authentication solution. So take a look at what this says. I think this, so this site just pulls through the authentication, but I think down here it actually pulls through the README from GitHub as well. Okay, so let's go and view this rather than viewing it in this website. Let's go and view this in. Do we just get a link to a repo? Need these link out. Source code. Here we go. Cool. Simple authentication solution. Oh, I do like these stats here, and also, sorry to keep jumping around, but you can actually click on this little comparison thing. I've never used this site before, but it gives you little, I don't know how great these metrics are for the popularity of a repo. There are lots of Ruby gems that just exist for a long time, and you know, it doesn't matter that they're not updated regularly because they just work as they are, and as long as they get security updates, they're fine for day-to-day use. So latest version, last commit, code quality, I assume that's using like Lumnify? Never heard of that, but I've used they think they changed their name. They were Code Coverage or something like that, and I've used a couple of other ones like that. They basically all use simple cover under the hood, I think, to measure how the kind of the code quality, and a few other Breakman and other gems. They bring them all together to give you a score. Monthly downloads, things. This is a pretty cool little rundown, whether you find those stats useful or not. Let's go take a look at AuthLogic as opposed to Devise. So Devise gives you user authentication out of the box. And we've got an unobtrusive Ruby authentication library based on active record. So versions, you can see they kind of start to match the Rails ones. Overview. AuthLogic introduces a new type of model. You can have as many as you want and name them whatever you want, just like your other models. We want to authenticate with our user model, which is inferred from the name. Cool. In a user sessions controller, log in the user by using it just like your other models. So you basically create that to create the session, create the user session model to create the session, save the session. Okay, so they've got an OpenID thingy, which I haven't used before. I think it's different from the OAuth stuff. That's not really something I've ever really delved into too deeply. This handles the entire authentication process for you. Validating weapons, sets up session cookies. Cool. It's also smart in the sense that if a login or user present, we'll use that to authenticate, but not look for an email field. Okay, this all seems pretty good. One of the things I was going to talk about from the learner's perspective is when you're thinking about Devise or adding users to a system, it's really, I think I would find it easy to think of that as a fairly simple thing to do, in terms as you need a username and password or whatever you're going to use, and then create some sort of session and things like that. On the surface, it may seem like a very simple problem to solve, and there are so many things going on that you don't think about on first pass necessarily. So the biggest one, of course, is security, and just the sheer scope of that kind of maybe doesn't creep up on you when you're first thinking about it. It is a really important point at which security is vital, like logging in, checking passwords, and things like that. There's session management, so people logging out, people logging in. How are you going to create the sessions? What does that look like? Resetting passwords is more, so it has to start integrating with emails or notifications and things like that. There's what you're using as the model structure underneath. So a user might have a username and password, but it might be an organization, it might be other things that you need to be able to log into things. Plus all of the different authentication methods. So we talked about OAuth, OpenID, and all of those different things. I would find it really interesting to build one. I'm not suggesting that I'm going to do it, but I would find it really interesting to build one of those, perhaps as a learner project, maybe more of a further on in the learner journey. Building like a user login system alone would be really useful, I think, in terms of just understanding where you start to reach the edges of security and things like that, because Devise is a gem that covers all of that process. It handles password resets and all those things, but it does use other gems under the hood. It's not taking care of all of those things just itself. So you yourself could implement something, maybe using Devise as a reference, but for like encrypting passwords and stuff, you could use the same mechanism they use, or gem or whatever it's doing under the hood. So it's interesting that there are other gems out there. One of the advantages of using something like Devise is that just the number of eyeballs on it is going to be really high. Lots of developers are looking at it all the time. Lots of it's very battle tested, so security alerts are going to come. They're going to be very public. You're going to hear about them very quickly. If you're using all the normal mechanisms to do that, looking for CVEs, getting your GitHub security alerts, reading the readmes, all of those kind of things for your gems. So that is one of the advantages, but it's good to know there are other gems out here that are more on this list. So Clearance I've heard of. I think Clearance is the one from ThoughtBot, I think. Let's go take a look at yeah, so Clearance is ThoughtBot, Rails authentication with email and password. So I think it's just a stripped down version. I don't think it has all of the other kind of add-ons that you can have with Devise. It's not got the same ecosystem, but that's absolutely fine. If you know you don't need that, you don't need it. So it might be Devise is kind of like, I think an ecosystem is a good way to describe it, but you may well not need that. Okay, so got gem clearance around the bundle list to clear. We've got some cool config here you can configure. Yeah, so you can see like bcrypt would be the password encryption stuff. Okay, so we've got auth logic, clearance. That's cool. That one actually supports multiple domains. I think we ended up doing something like that with Devise. Sorcery, I haven't heard of. Magical authentication. Okay. What's magical about it? Opening thousands of tabs here. What is magical about this authentication? So support for, yeah, I mean, even going as far, I mean, if you're talking about gems, support for different ORMs and databases and things. Okay, so crypto code taken almost unchanged from auth logic. Auth code. Okay, so again, just different approaches. Sorcerer stripped down. Yeah, so I think that this is a key idea here, is this idea of Devise being a full ecosystem is a lot. There's a lot of code that you may or may not use over time. Whereas this is a stripped down bare bones authentication library, so you can write your own. So you're not getting all of the other bells and whistles that you might not need. Or you want to take a different approach. And as a learner, that's a really difficult thing to know whether you want to do, especially at the start of a project. You're like, I just want an email address and a password box, or I just want to sign in with Facebook box or something like that. It can be difficult to know at that point where you're going to deviate from the standard flow. And in that case, I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to go with Devise just to... I basically don't want to get too hung up on this for a long period of time, so I just want to kind of go with something I know that will work. But I would certainly, if you are interested in learning in this area, or you're building an app and you're like, well, that seems like a lot, or I want to not just do what everyone else is doing, I think this is hugely valuable to go through these gems, implement them just in a dummy app or in different branches or something like that, and see what you like and don't like, and start to develop a kind of sense of that for yourself. I know that a few developers really don't like a lot of the approaches that Devise takes of just all of those extra bells and whistles. It just never really bothered me, but this flow is not something I've ever delved into particularly. Just by coincidence through the work I've been doing, it's not something that I've really thought about. Now, the JWT stuff, I think there's JavaScript web tokens and web tokens in general, JSON web tokens, sorry. Are they two different things? Anyway, it doesn't matter. That is something I have looked into, but there are plugins again for Devise. If you already have Devise, there is like Devise-JWT. And as we spoke about, there is like OmniAuth providers for Devise as well. Wooden, I think, is used under the hood of Devise, and a few of these other ones. Knock. Okay, so that's more JSON web token or JavaScript web token. Road auth authentication for rack applications. Passwordless. Okay, so it seems we've got a really good list here. So, like I said, if we want to talk about different approaches that learners can take, I would really want to take the approach of knowing why Devise is that kind of so widely. I mean, we can talk about like just the number of downloads it has. So Devise is was up. What was it? It was up to like a million or something like that. Millions and millions. I lost that comparison page, but. And what's the difference between that and, oh, here we go, monthly downloads is 1.9 million, and then you'll see some of these other ones will be a lot lower. So Knock would be monthly downloads 23,000. I mean, just orders of magnitude smaller than Devise in terms of popularity, but there are reasons why these things exist. There are reasons you might want to use them. So incredibly useful as a learner to kind of go through. But again, if you don't want to spend the time, as we don't right now, we don't want to explore this part of the Rails ecosystem too much. So we're going to go ahead and install Devise and move ahead with that. This is a pretty cool site though. There used to be one called, is it Ruby Toolbox? Does that still exist? Categories. Wow, okay, cool. So I don't even know what the category would be called. Can we just search for Devise and then it will tell us? Web authentication is the category. Okay, so let's see what this has got in it as well. The Devise. Oh, okay, wow, loads of stats here. Devise, OmniAuth, Doorkeeper, Auth. Okay, so it's the same sort of list. I wonder what this is ordered by. Oh, they've got their some sort of formula up here. Wow. Okay, yeah. So like project score 24.4, and the next one is 9. Okay, fair enough. Just. Nothing wrong with these ones down here, but again, you need to do your own due diligence. A long-lived project, this still receives updates, but you know, absolutely fine. Cool. Yeah, these are great sites. It's so much fun to like. I just haven't done this in a little while. going through and looking at what the options are. Again, I think this is why I've never really delved into it, because once I've gone with Devise, I've never really returned to that flow. I just need people in, and then on a personal level, I'm more interested in what we're doing with the users when they're in the app. But again, I've never, just through requirements and stuff, not needed to do crazy customization of that. Like we've added, login with social logins and stuff. And again, it's kind of worked out the box. And not been on teams that have done implementations, but I am aware that they can get super complex, so not trying to downplay that at all. Okay, let's go take a look at Devise in that case. So okay, let's go take a look at Devise gem, and let's close these other tabs out. Cool. So if you remember, on a previous stream, we used Rails bytes to install a bunch of stuff. And we might want to take a look at doing that again, because I was interested in the project as a whole, and it worked. Like we got a Tailwind, I think we used to install it. Right, okay, so Devise is a flexible authentication solution for Rails based on what we mentioned earlier. Rack-based, some cool things. It is composed of 10 modules, and this is this idea of, again, I'm maybe using the wrong word here, but an ecosystem. You can kind of pick and choose the bits that you do and don't want, but they're still kind of there whether you need them or not. Omni-authable, confirmable, recoverable, registerable, memberable, lockable. Yeah, that sounds. Params. So I don't really want to sit on a live stream and read the whole thing. But if you are new to doing this, there are loads of stuff that I would probably, because I've used the gem before, like take for granted, like having current_user if user is the resource you choose to use it with. But that's a typical thing where when you're reading other people's code, you'd be like, where does current user come from? Like, where is this? This just magically appears here in controllers, and user signed in ? And things like that. And user is swapped out automatically from the model of the name of the model of the resource you're doing with authentication. Like, where did that method come from? And you have to kind of Google around. So if you are new to this, this is a really worthwhile read. And they also, my memory is they have some pretty good docs as well. It's just not this README. There are other docs, if my memory serves me correct, or am I going to be completely wrong and I'm thinking of something else? This stuff? No, that's a blog post. Jump up to the top and see if they have oh, the Devise wiki, that was it. They had a wiki thing. No, okay. What? Yeah, okay, so document how-to articles, that was it. Okay, so they have a bunch of stuff here. This is, I've actually contributed to some of these because they have found them, they do go a little bit out of date, but you can update them if they're not. All right, okay, cool. So let's go take a look at Rails bytes like we did before and see what they have. So authentication with Devise. Devise invitable, Devise plus OmniAuth, active admin. Okay, I think we just want a basic one. What does this do? Once you finish running this template, make sure to add a sign up links to your navigation. Play source review this do bundle. Bundle install, bundle add Devise, generate Rails. So it basically just does the things that the installation will tell you to do. Just trying to save some time rather than you watching me do the things that the installation part of this will tell us to do anyway. Started. You see, then this is basically doing, this script is doing bundle install, bundle add Devise. So you can see that's basically the same as doing gem Devise to your bundle file, run bundle, add devise. Oh, okay, so that will do that. Do bundle, generate devise install, devise install. What do you want to convert your devise model? Oh, this is pretty cool. Then you can kind of ask, do you want to add any extra attributes? We don't use Rails command here to avoid accidentally having Rails. Yeah, I kind of like these. Like, I wonder if the installer for gems could start to use stuff like this. Just, I really like the kind of learner facing. I don't know, maybe if you just learn to install stuff like this, you'd get stuck when you actually needed to do the things under the hood. How valuable that would be. Okay. Let's give this a try. I'm interested in this. So we're basically gonna, if you are a learner and you are interested in installing Devise, definitely go through this install pattern. We're gonna go off the beaten path. We're gonna be interesting just out of my own curiosity. So let's get so we're still on this install Tailwind branch as we were before. Fair enough. We're going to be on it forever until I get time to go back to these work in progress things. But I haven't touched this stuff since last week, so you just copy this to clipboard. Do we have to have generated the model? I should have thought about that. I don't think so. It says, what do you want to call your model? Let's just run this. Let's just see what happens. Cool, we got a big old failure. So basically we have an issue with versioning. No, we got an error with installing bcrypt. Okay, let's see if we get, oh, what has that actually just done to our files then? That'd be training device. Okay. And if we do choose to follow that error message, what do we get? So yeah, I'm guessing. Weird. Okay, so let's actually do nothing for those first few steps because it's already there. We'll just run bundle install again, I would guess. Oh, okay. Okay, so they're not super smart in terms of checking what's already there. Okay, so if we pull that out. What does that then do? Just interested to see. This is me being more interested in Rails bytes than getting Devise installed. So apologies if I'm going off, kind of off script or anything. We can just go. It doesn't really matter because we can just go back and install it following the. Yeah. Okay. It does not like that. And Devise 4.7. Is that set by the script here? Bundle add Devise. No, so that should be the latest version. 4.7, okay. Interesting. So if we just do bundle install works. Okay. So then we're just gonna have to do the rest of it ourselves. That's only mildly annoying. Cleaning up that gem file. We're gonna take all these comments and stuff out. They're all from that initial Rails new install. Okay, so well, that didn't pan out with the Rails bytes. I'm not sure. Once you've got a failure, you're a bit on your own at that point. So you have to go back to these. Okay, if they run, they run. If they don't, they don't. All right, let's. I've already forgotten what it said about installing it. So we want to go to started. So add the gem, run bundle install, and then we're going to run this. So we can actually bring. Bear with me. Oh, okay, cool. So where's terminal? Hopefully we can see what gets added. Cool, so we've got loads of information here. Depending on your application's configuration, some manual setup may be required. So this is one of the really helpful things about like large gems and gems that have a big ecosystem is you get help. There's like someone's bothered to go through and add in, hey, you just installed this thing. You might want to do X, Y, and Z. So sure, you had to find default options in your environments file. Here's an example. Well, let's go through and do these. Okay, so here, that's the impression just in my development approach. Like, hey, let's actually follow these instructions rather than just poking around. So let's go take a look for default URL options. And normally we've done this stuff for mailers anyway by this point, but we've done things in a weird order for this channel. So we don't have default URL options. Production host should be set to that. Well, let's add that for development then. And there's nothing in here for default. Is there one of those ones where it's commented out? No, it would still appear in search. Well, the rest of them have comments, so actually with config stuff, that's actually pretty helpful. Adding in default URL options as part of the... Again, normally look in the commit message, but I'm not convinced I'm going to remember to write this up very well, because again, not an approach I would normally take. Normally be a lot more diligent about this, but just because we're doing it for the stream, we're not going to be quite as much. So I'm just going to add a little comment in here, because it's already there in the default Rails new stuff, having a little comment as to why each one exists. I don't tend to do that for code as much, but for config it seems to make a bit more sense. Let's put the Devise installation. I think for the that's just a note to another. There's nothing in there that's technical. That's just a note to future me to remember why that's there. Okay, cool. So that's number one. We don't have an application in production yet, so Am I going to shoot myself in the foot by forgetting that? That seems fair enough. Sure, you would find root URL to something, so we did do that. Ensure you have flash messages. Wow, that came up last couple of streams ago to add those in. So we actually do have those. Super useful. Do we have notice and alert in them? Yeah, we just did a little loop to go over each with the type in the message. We just go over all of them. You can copy Devise views for customization to your app. We're going to do this as well because we want to. That's saying we don't need them. We're going to add them just because we want as much out of the box for free as possible. So I had a weird clipping, so I'm just going to check that the audio is still working on the stream. Yeah, still there. I'm just going to check that again in a couple of minutes just to make sure people can still hear. Cool. Okay, so let's run this as well then. Or should we do 2 different commits? Come on, let's be. So again, I'm just using VS Code here as my Git editor. So whip install account as well. Initializer. Install Devise gem. Default. Default settings is just because these are work in progress commits. It's just so I can remember what I was doing. And then this one we're going to put in added config as part of Devise installation. Cool. And then we can run our command that we just got to add our views. Now look at how much we've got there kind of for quote unquote free. You might not want it all, but if you look at what we've got here, we've got shared views for error messages, for links that are going to appear on the forms, confirmations, that's hey, your please confirm your account, blah, 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 passwords, new and edit, registrations, new and edit, that's going to be your sign up pages, sessions, new and edit, that's your sign in, not new and edit, sorry, new, that's just a folder being created. And unlock new, that's if you use lockable. Again, you don't need all of these. So if you're not going to use all these features, they're actually stuff you can remove. So by the installation just does all of them. That's why I think that it lets you, they're not required. You can basically come in and build these yourselves. You also don't have to use any of their templates. You could build the forms yourself and just use the functionality that the Devise gem gives you. I've installed them just because it's actually, if you're a learner, it's a really helpful way to see the defaults, like see what it expects to work. And then once you've done, I think for me, a while ago, but I think basically like running it through on an app with all the defaults, playing with what they did, see what I could take out, and then trying it on a project that actually like there was more going on was really helpful. A long time ago though. And then you get mailers as well. So obviously you want send people password resets, unlock their account, changing their emails, stuff like that. And that's why I needed the mailer config to be set. It wants to send emails for you. Super helpful. Again, you don't need to do it this way. That's the opt-in and opt-out nature. You don't need to do that. So let's commit all of that stuff. We're just going to do the whole thing. Again, that's not that I'm just not doing that due diligence. Do we need all of this stuff in here? I don't know. But we don't really have a spec or a destination or anything we're working towards. We're just doing this, and then we're going to chuck it all in work in progress. And we're probably going to add it all in and then take some bits and bobs out later. So install Devise views. These are all the defaults that that are generated when running whatever that That just gets rid of all those into the commit history. Cool. Was there anything else on that command? No, that was it. So we now have Devise up and running. So I think if we go to our, if we run a server now, we should see routes and things like that. Okay, let's take a look. That's the wrong way around, isn't it? It's Rails info routes. We have to add this to the routes, don't we? Okay. We don't get the routes as part of the installation, so getting started. Add these. The generator will install initializer, which will all of it is imperative that you take a look at it. Okay, we are going to take a look at that, but again, this is just for streaming, not doing my due diligence, because otherwise it is imperative that we go and look at it. We'll go look at it later. Follow the instructions. Be good. We should be looking at that. Okay, when you're done, where's the root stuff? So that's all in the models, params, views, device file. Here we go. Yeah. All right, but we have to. It's okay. So we need our model first. Cool. Mouse generate devise model. Okay, let's just do this. We're just going to really follow their guide here. Again, I know it said it was imperative we read the docs, but we're not going to do that for this project. We're going to do that later. What do we get if we run that? Okay. So devise create users. Let's go take a look. This is so interesting having not done this for a while. Like, it's so cool to see all this stuff. You just forget how much is providing this stuff. This actually goes back to what we were talking about in one of the very first episodes in terms of like why use a framework like Rails. This idea of a learner that I was speaking to that had been told to go and learn individual parts, and then this concept of like being unaware that a framework would help tie all of those parts together. Sometimes too much in a way that you don't want, but the productivity gains are massive in terms of like, just authentication. Just, follow these instructions. They're really well written. The code works, and get an actual product out the other end. So we've got email, encrypted password, which is all we really need. And then a bunch of other trackable, confirmable. I actually want loads of these features on. Yeah, it would be cool if that Rails byte stuff did, like the gem asked you a bunch of questions during installation to get it running through. So that's cool. This is really good anyway. So let's just go back to these, check the model for any configuration or options you might want to add. So just confirmable or log on. Okay, so let's go check the model. Database authenticatable, registerable, recoverable, rememberable, validatable. So we want... We're going to have confirmable. We're going to have trackable, which does kind of bump into GDPR stuff. We're over in the EU. So that would track IP addresses, which is personally identifiable information. So we need to handle that stuff. 100% sure about lockable. Timeoutable, I think you can do through this session. And omniauth we can come back to later because I'm kind of interested in that. Okay, so let's save that, which would mean that we need trackable, farmable. Do you want to use reconfirmable? Changing your email address. Do you want that? I'm not doing unlock. Yeah, I don't. I'm assuming this is to like prevent brute force stuff. I don't know why we wouldn't turn that on. But then the unlock strategy is email. I'm just gonna leave. Okay, let's leave that off. I don't really want to get into what that is. We can reset that password anyway. So I think that would give us everything we need. Do we need to put reconfirmable in this? Where's reconfirm? Okay, it's not in the docs. I'm gonna click through because it said only if you've got reconfirmable turned on. Reconfirm required. I think it's a config option, so if we just add it to the migration, we can use it as we wish. Cool. Let's jump back to the DB migrate, okay. I missed one? Keyword and that one? If you didn't spot it, this error is not helpful. It's that's the error that you're looking for in amongst a wall of text. That is not learner friendly, but let's give that another try. Cool, okay, so we've added stuff. Let's commit all of this stuff just to make these. Cool, so this is added Devise for users. So those are our routes that we were looking for earlier. We've got a migration to actually add the users to the database. We've got a factory and we've got a model, which is setting our what we want from Devise, these kind of like modules. Well, is that what it called them? Modules made up of 10. Yeah, modules. And a non-existent test, so we can just chuck all this in as well. Add user model. Generate point nation script. Cool. Okay, so go back to where we were. You should restart your application after changing, otherwise you'll run into strange errors. So let's do a server. And now what we should hopefully have in our routes is users. And if you look at what's actually happening, I'll make this font a bit bigger. So if you look at what's actually, oh, it's a bit too big. If you look at what's actually happening here, can I make this wider? We've got, by adding this line in the roots file, Devise 4, and that was added by Devise, and that's that kind of installation script that we just ran. It says, hey, the model that you're using for Devise is called users. I've generated that for you. I've created the migration for you. I've added factories and all those other things. And what Devise 4 is doing is adding loads of roots. So they're super helpful. They're the stuff you're going to need. Create a new session, like logging in, change your password, do all that stuff. Cancel your registration, just handy stuff that you can, again, we talked about, you can turn it on and off later. But if you look at where they're actually going, we didn't create any controllers as part of that. And what that means is they're going through to Devise controllers. So by installing the gem, you've got access to these controllers that are available without you needing to create ones in your app. I mean, they are in your app because they're through the gem, but you don't have to go and add Devise sessions. And what this lets you do is you can start to customize the behavior of these by generating your own controller and then deciding to either not use the Devise ones or inherit from the Devise ones and override individual methods. That's how Devise lets you kind of override individual bits of functionality. So I think if we go to here, we'll get the views as well. So if we just go to yeah, so you can see we've got our custom font still working and no other styling because we're using Tailwind, which doesn't do that. And the form fields are basically invisible, but we now have users and passwords and we can try to log in. Now, I've got, okay, that's actually pretty good. So we can try and log in. Password says invalid email address or password. So we can't log in. We haven't got any users, so we can't do anything, but it is working. That is now up and running. So if we click forgot a password and we type an email address in, that will work. So we should be able to sign up potentially. So let's add an email. We're going to add test at example.com and we're going to add in a password. We're going to confirm that password again. No user interface or any of this stuff. We're going to sign up. And we're going to it sends us back to our roots file. But hopefully, if we try our console now, let's do this one in another color like we did previously. And just bump that font size right up. Hopefully that's visible. Oh. Why is that not in the same? In here we might be able to do user.count1. So if we grab the first, which will be the only one we've got, we have a user with that email address. And also stored in there is an encrypted password field. We just can't see it. It's not returned as part of the default one that's brought back, but that is there. That's part of the Devise thing. So now we should be able to know that we're logged in as that user. And what we can do is take a look at our views that we had before, and we can maybe go to channels show, and let's say right here, just going to add in something really quick. Just going to say you're logged in as, and then earlier on we referred to these kind of magic methods that you get given by Devise. So current user is one of them, and again it's user because that's the model name that we've given it. And then if we go to channels 1, undefined method email for no, I guess we don't. Oh, so you're not logged. Okay, so you actually create the user and then not log in as them. What's the sign in path? We then we have to sign in as that person. I think that is an option. You have to confirm your email address. Ugh, okay, well, we turned confirmable on. Okay, so this, I might just take my word for this a little bit. These do work, but we don't have... can we get these? We could do the confirmation, kind of look at that confirmation token. So, be new user confirmation path. I'm just going to see if we can confirm this, but I can't remember the token thing. So it would be this, and then it would be something like token, and then we could get the token from the DB. That's probably not worth it. Can we just turn in the model, if we just turn confirmable off real quick? Oh, actually, isn't there a config which we did not read, which we should have read about, the require confirmation? There's something in here about a grace period or something like that. Remembering keys. Confirm within. Here we go. That'll give us 3 days. Let's yeah, let's just set that for now, so we can then restart the server. Sorry about this, just try the login again. So what that was basically doing is saying you can't log in until you've confirmed your account. And what you can do in Devise, again, this is stuff that's available for free, is to set a grace period. Which doesn't seem to have come through. You have to confirm your address before continuing. Okay. What an idiot. It's the one above, allow unconfirmed access for. Okay, sorry. The confirm within is expires the token that's emailed to them, that little link that you get that says, hey, you got to click this link. You can set how long that link is valid for in case your security requirements need it. So this should now hopefully cover, so that. Well, and now hopefully if we go to, cool, you're logged in as test@example.com. So that's it. We now have user authentication within the app. Pretty cool. Not a huge amount of work. Loads of stuff to go back and look through if you're interested in that stuff. Absolutely loads. Let's see, is there anything still left here? We can take that out. Oh, I don't care about these two right now, so they can stay. And what we really want to do is then look at the next part of the docs, which is telling people what they can and can't do. So Devise provides a couple of helpful things here. So you can see Devise creates some helpers to use inside your controllers and views. To set up a controller with user authentication, just add this before action, assuming your Devise model is user. Before action, authenticate user. So what we actually want to do is take a look at our admin area as an example, just a quick one-off example. And what we want to do is say, okay, well, you can only go here if you're logged in. So you can maybe go to /channels/1, but I think we added in control panel /channels/1. Yeah, so this is the control panel version. So let's so here's the public one as an example, /channels/1, and here's the one that only we want users to be able to access. This is the suspend stuff we added last week. And so what we can do is take one of these helpers they give us, and we can say so we should, where's the one where it'll do it on? Sorry, I'm just reading through real quick. Shit, I have just spilled coffee everywhere. I'm gonna take a break for a couple minutes while I go clean this up. Sorry about that. Okay, we are back. Sorry about that. Spilled coffee everywhere. Had to go clean it up. And did a mediocre job at best. So we were looking at these docs to actually just noticed the when we did the generating of the views earlier, you can just pass in the ones you need. We spoke about kind of we added them all, then we can take them away later, but you can just say what features you want to add the views for. So we were looking at the controllers to say, right, we want to be able to do stuff for admins and not for anyone else. Or maybe just check permissions only on that one. And I was just skimming through to look for... I was actually looking for where do we say... Check this on all of them and skip. Would be I guess in like Pundit or can we probably do that. Yeah, so we could do something like we want to only check that the users are signed in our admin controllers in our admin controllers. That's control panel, and the way that we can do that is in control panel. I'm going to do this without tests because I'm just going to wrap up for time. So I'm just going to add in you'll often see this pattern used adding in like a base controller. So this is, I think I've added that in the wrong folder. Is that inside here or is that inside here? No, it's inside there. That's good. So it'll be control panel, base controller, and then that will inherit from application controller as the others do. And we can put in our authentication that we want to happen on every action, which is where we've just got that from the docs. And then what we can do is have this be used by the suspensions controller. So rather than inheriting directly from application controller, it then inherits from the base controller instead. And we could do the same thing. So you can't then suspend or view this without being a user. So the way we can check that is we can go to this URL and let's open up an incognito window. You can't really tell the difference too well because I'm in dark mode, so there's a little incognito here in the top right, and hopefully we should still... Oh, well, we can just wrap a conditional around that real quick. So in the view, we can just do it in here. This is just really rough. So if current user, then you're logged in there, and if not, we can just pop in a quick. Oh, I've even got the wrong URL. You're not logged in. So hopefully then in our incognito window this should then work. You're not logged in. And obviously in our original one, we're still logged in here. And then let's try and get to our other URL. So here we're in control panel channels 1. We refresh this. And it doesn't work. So authenticate member. Okay. We want authenticate user. Cool, so it works here, and what we should be able to see is that if we go to the same URL in our incognito window where we're not logged in, you need to sign up or log in. So immediately we've got that, we've blocked that access, and that's come for free with Devise, and then we can look at implementing permissions and things like that later. So we've immediately only got access for signed in users to these controllers just by creating that base controller here. So this one here is saying, okay, I'm going to use the method we got from Devise, and I'm going to set it as a before action. So before any action is run, do this, that authenticate the user, and any controller that inherits from this base controller. So we then implemented that on the suspensions and the channels controller. We're like, well, you inherit from here, which means you're going to run that before action. And that's going to say, please authenticate, and then you can't access them. Now, what that's not doing is saying, do you own the right channel? So any user that's signed in at the moment could come and access this control panel, which is obviously not what we want. So we only want the owners of that channel, or anyone allowed to access that channel, to be able to access it and suspend it or do whatever is needed or whatever's available in that view. Now, that's where we move from authentication to permissions and roles and those kind of things, which we're going to try and look at next week. I'd hoped we'd get to it today, but time's got away from me, and spilling coffee everywhere hasn't helped. So hopefully, let's just do a quick run through of what we've looked at today. So we've had kind of some of the other options that are available, other gems that are available for authentication, rolling your own being really helpful, a look at Rails bytes, which didn't really pan out, but then installing Devise, just using the defaults, how quickly we were able to get up and running with that. A look at some places along the way as to where we could spend longer, which I really recommend doing, and then looking at how we can actually implement that in a controller to block access to only logged in users. And that brings us really neatly up to the point where we have we would need permissions and roles and things like that, which we can start to look at in another episode. So thank you. I just want to do a couple of things. So yep, so that's the roundup. Just a couple of things. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed or left comments or done anything like that. Super useful for me. And for anyone that's found these useful, just to take a look through gems or code or things like that. And next week we'll be back to 10:30 Sunday, looking at roles and permissions. And I'm going to try and do those homework clubs for both the Git and hopefully for the UI. No promises, because again, it just depends on my spare time during the week. But have a great week, and see you all next time.